It's time for Mr. Fundamental!
Presented by no one.
Scoring in the NBA has increased dramatically over the past 2 decades. The league average went from just over 93 points to scoring over 110 per game this past year. The NBA's transition into analytics and a fast-paced positionless game definitely had a hand in that. In a recent interview, Luka Doncic said it's easier to score in the NBA compared to playing in Europe. Besides the obvious differences in terms of court size and 3-second violations, there are other reasons for his statement. I also want to say that I couldn't get this video out during the short off-season, so the clips I've used is from last year, but the same points applies. Anyways, let's get into it. Before we look at the tapes, let's quickly check out what other players who've played in both leagues have said. Dorel Wright said that the EuroLeague is more team-oriented, and players usually don't score 20 plus points every game. It's a collective effort of everyone scoring 8 to 12 points. Averaging 12 to 14 points is like averaging 22 points in the NBA. It's hard to score in Europe, where you have to grind it out, while NBA is more showtime. Chris Singleton mentioned the same things, but also added the focus on defensive structure and concepts. Josh Powell further explains that if you can't play defense in the NBA, you'll get exposed. In Europe, their team concept and defense can mask these things, which further emphasizes the difficulty to score. The first thing about Luka on the Mavs is just the freedom and control he has. Ever since they traded away Dennis Smith Jr., Luka has basically initiated all their actions, and the numbers back that up. Last year, Luka ranked second in both touches and time of possession. Without KB to start the season, Luka is again at the top of the league this year, ranking 4th in touches and 1st in time of possession. Anyways, all this led to his willingness to take these tough contested step-back threes, and we all know how deadly these shots are, and the impacts of it from James Harden's career. Even though Luka isn't the most efficient beyond the arc, he mixed up with volume, and the defense still has to respect these shots, especially late in the game. Luka took most of his threes when the defense went under the screen or sagged off him, because that's the correct decision in their team concept. If his defender goes over the screen, there's no reason for him to pull up, because the right move is to drive and collapse the defense, and generate an easier open look for his team. You also rarely see these type of heat check shots in the EuroLeague, but these are just one indication of the freedom Luka has in the NBA. Everything about Luka's offensive game starts with these step-back threes, but I'll come back to the impact of this later. As the previous basketball players have mentioned, one of the reasons it's harder to score in the EuroLeague is the team philosophy. Check out how the defense constantly collapses on the primary action, then recovers on shooters. On the drive against the closeout, the big rotates over to help, but the weak side defender sinks lower. While they're preventing the dump-off pass, they're giving up the open three. How they look at it is that this is a further pass than the dump-off, making the latter more threatening. This is something they've always overlooked in the NBA, where they prioritize preventing threes instead. It was harder to gather the pass with a packed paint, and the offensive player had to fade away to get a shot off. The defense is always forcing the extra pass and biding time for their weak side rotations. See how all 5 players have the foot in the paint on the penetration. They did mess up the last rotation, but you can see the emphasis on collapsing and recovering. This might have been more common in the NBA last year, but Luka has been facing these his whole career before entering the NBA, so it often leads to both good and bad results, but rarely an easy shot for himself. Of course, this is also aided by the smaller court, so the recovering distance is also less after collapsing, but not by as much as you think. There's also no 3 seconds in the key, so bigs can just station in front of the rim and become a deterrent. This also means any penetration is definitely met by another defender, who's already in position to help, making it harder to score for primary ball handlers like Luka. The last thing about the EuroLeague is how often they implement creative schemes. I won't go too in depth on this because I'm gonna make another video, but this wall defense is just at another level, with stopping penetration and kickouts. Even young Luka was stymied by this strategy. Now that we've checked out the difficulty of scoring in the EuroLeague, we're moving on to scoring in the NBA. As past players have said, the NBA is more showtime, and focus a bit more on those one-on-one situations. Prime example is when the Warriors started the small ball switching schemes. All that focuses on having the on-ball defender to shut down the offensive player. While some teams have trended towards the collapse and recover strategy, like the Bucks and the Raptors, weak side rotations aren't always consistent. As I said before, the analytics movement have made the NBA focus on preventing threes. So on this drive by Simmons, VanVleet recovers to his man, but gives up an open lane to the rim. A key philosophy for them is jab at the primary action and recover to their man, which is also a viable option. The defense initially contains the penetration, but that extra jab by VanVleet causes Butler to pick up his dribble. From this point, Butler's option is to pass it off, take big long strides to get to the rim, but this will also give Gasol time to cover, or take and miss the contested dreaded mid-range jumper. This is where Luka comes in. Here's that same help defense to force Luka to pick up the dribble above the free throw line. He steps through for the running floater, but look at how Luka fades backwards after seeing Pat Bev recovering. This leads to the flyby, and a wide open floater one step away from the rim. This is essentially the same possession. Kawhi helps one pass away to force Luka to pick up the dribble. Those extended steps allows him to get by Kawhi, but also allows Pat Bev to recover. It's also because of Pat Bev's momentum carrying him towards the rim. Luka fades back to create separation for another close floater. This brings us to another point. The NBA is full of athletic defenders, at least ones that are more athletic than Luka. So on the drive here, Pat Bev never loses a step. Since his intention is to stay in front of the drive, he'll constantly slide towards this direction. When Luka spins, see how Pat Bev's next step is going towards the baseline, leaving him out of position to contest the shot. EuroLeague defenders aren't always that athletic, so Luka's penetration is already enough to create openings. Here he created some space, so he's going up against a recovering defender now. On the drive, he has a lane to get through, but gets ahead of himself with a behind the back, making him change direction back into his defender, and he turns it over. This time, he makes the right choice with the crossover and gets a step on his defender. However, his focus on keeping this advantage makes him lose his body control, leading to the offensive foul. In the NBA, he's always up against the best defenders, so he usually doesn't have that step on his defender without a screen. Luka picked up his dribble here in case PG strips it. Now Morris times a step to contest, but it doesn't matter because his momentum is carrying him towards the basket. Another fade back floater gets Luka another good look near the rim. Now you combine his pull up and step back threes, defenders will constantly press up on him. That means an aggressive drive will trigger the start of being ahead of his defender. Bradley here wouldn't allow that, so he slides and beats Luka to the spot. That slight fade allows Luka to create enough space for the short jumper. Of course, NBA defense isn't perfect, and Luka will get a step on his defender at some point. That's the nightmare for defenses, since there's a 2-on-1 situation now. While this floater might seem like an easy choice, there's a few things that factor into his decision. If he continued to drive, Zubac could block his shot at the rim, or if he chooses the wrap-around pass, it also allows PG time to recover and dig down on the pass. Another factor is hopping instead of a 1-2 to get the floater off before Zubac contests. Pat Bev closes the gap here to prevent the 3. When Luka shows a drive to the left, check out how Pat Bev jumps in his path, but it also opens up the lane for Luka. Here's that same 2-on-1 situation, and a hop floater to get it off quickly. This is slightly different in pick and rolls. The help defender's man isn't at the dunker spot, so they're typically more aggressive on help. This is when Luka goes for the Euro, and this slight ball fake gets a defender in the air and out of position to contest this layup. Looking back at this, see how the first step gets Jordan sliding to cut off Luka, then a jump backwards to avoid the foul. Luka doesn't create space by fading, since his defender is trailing, and chooses to step through to create that same separation. On the pick and roll, Luka uses that same Euro, but Kaminsky didn't bite on the first step. When Luka steps through, Kaminsky instinctively cuts him off with his body. This is enough contact to warrant a foul, but it also gets Kaminsky backing off for an open floater. Against quicker defenders, you'll see them continuously backtrack. Luka knows the defender is trailing, so he doesn't fade back, but just jumps straight up instead. Combine both of this, then you get the separation and the open floater. Another thing about Luka's scoring in the NBA is just how it's refereed. Defense have been getting pretty physical with Luka, and they get all up in his grill. Luka uses that against defense by drawing fouls or doing that swipe move. I haven't seen much EuroLeague games, but I don't think they reward these type of moves as much as the NBA. Once the team gets into the bonus, every single one of these fouls lead to 2 free throws, and Luka is averaging 9 free throws a game, so that's just easy points. The last thing I want to go over is how the defense respect his passing ability. We've all heard and seen how the ability to score leads to more assist opportunities. What Luka does is letting his passing create scoring opportunities for him. This is a play I couldn't get my mind off after game 4. Luka attacks a scramble defense, and Morris is in good position to pick him up. Again, Morris is able to stay in front of Luka, but that fading floater creates enough space for a good look. If we look back at this, keep your eyes on Lou Will. He practically runs away from the ball, which is the most dangerous thing, because he was respecting Luka as a playmaker, leading to the corner 3. Had Lou Will stayed to help on the drive, he could have gotten a decent secondary contest on the floater. Here's a closer look from another angle. Lou Will was in position to contest, but chose to cover the pass instead, and gives up the open floater. Here's one last example. After the double screen, the slight hezi reveals the Clippers' fear of his passing. Pat Bev and Harkless get stunned because they thought he'll kick it out to KP. Zubac continues to sag because of the Powell roll, and Luka gets a good look for the floater. I know there are other stuff I haven't covered in depth, like those step back threes, or even just Mav schemes like 5-outs and high pick and rolls. All these contribute to making Luka's life easier as a scorer, like those step back causes defense to press up on him, which makes them susceptible to drive-bys. 5-outs and high pick and rolls just spreads the floor even more, leading to less traffic on his drives, but I guess those are a bit more obvious, and Luka fans should be well aware of those. I I think these floaters might have been overlooked, since it's not the most appealing or flashiest plays, but it is a huge reason why Luka thinks it's easier to score in the NBA. Anyways, let me know why you guys think it's easier for Luka to score in the NBA, and maybe some things I haven't covered. As always, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Drop a like down below if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time.